¿A dónde está papi? 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 ¿A dónde está papi?
Welcome to the Monday stream. I hope everyone's having an awesome Monday. Welcome, everybody. Derry Bennett, Q Bennett, Heat, how's it going? Mouselander, Michael Hassler. Welcome, everybody. I hope everyone had an awesome weekend. Also, folks, join the Discord. If you haven't already done so, join the Discord. I will put the thing. How are you? I'm tired. Ready to go to sleep, to be honest. This weekend, yes, this weekend coming. That's right. We are going to attempt to do. We're going to attempt to host a movie night. I can be in the background, just kind of doing my thing. And we can do it via the Discord. And we can start thinking about what to put on as the week progresses. But we'll keep thinking about it. Drink this. Yeah, I do need a soda. Movie night. That's right. So if you want to have some fun and join us, join the Discord Saturday evening. At least that's the preliminary thought process. That's the preliminary thought process. If anything changes, we'll keep updating it as we go. Fun fact, Cardi B is not endorsing Biden. Oof. That's rough. Hey, how come it's not playing? There we go. All right, folks, we got we got a lot to talk about. We got a lot of segments to do. So I guess we should get started. But yeah, join the Discord, folks. It's been under some renovations, and I think that it looks pretty good. I'm quite happy with it. I'm quite happy with how it turned out, or how it's turning out. So slowly but surely, we'll get the Discord up to par. I think SNL nailed it this weekend. Trump is scared, but voting for Biden. Meh. I mean, yes, but also like, damn, man, when are we gonna like enter the when are we gonna enter the phase where like we don't have to like make these type of decisions? Because like the other choice is like to just not participate. Like I don't know. Unfortunately, the two-party system has basically all but made it impossible. And here we are. All right, folks, let's start. Someone somewhere is counting on you not voting. I can take a guess. I can take a guess. Conscious Canuck, welcome. We could let Project 2025 happen and not worry about voting at all. True. That would solve the problem, right? That would solve that conundrum. In a way. In a manner of speaking.
For the first time and probably forever, you just simply feel seen. And you can talk to your next door neighbor about actually receiving something from the American government.
I've been sick for 3 weeks and feel like crap. Anyways, Charlemagne the God was on Chris Wallace's show on CNN for a personal one-on-one interview about politics. So Charlemagne is a radio host, a celebrity. He's someone that I think he's popular because he's very authentic. Even when he's wrong, he's interesting. But I do often think Charlemagne.
I don't know, man. Maybe maybe getting like serious political commentary or political points, talking points from like, I don't know, celebrities is like not it doesn't always end up great. Just saying.
Has something worth listening to, has comments worth listening to, has something to add to the conversation around politics. He does have an insight that I find interesting. So in this case, I do think he is hitting on something. So he talks about both Donald Trump, his thoughts, but also why he thinks Donald Trump is gaining in popularity with.
I just ate too much bread. Oh man, you're gonna have to hang tight because this is gonna be a bit of a bumpy ride today. Okay.
Some black voters. I'll get to that in the second clip. But he also discusses in this first clip here what he thinks this election might come down to.
What do you think of Donald Trump?
I think Donald Trump is a fascist who does not care about democracy in any way, shape, or form. And I think anytime you hear somebody say we should suspend the Constitution in order to overturn the results of an election, us as Americans should be terrified. Like that, like I don't care what color you are, what gender you are, what sexuality you are, what religion you are. If you have a man in power saying we need to suspend the Constitution for anything, you should be terrified.
So you think it would be dangerous for the country if he were to get back in the White House?
I think that's an understatement. And I think that's also the pickle that we as American people are in, right? Because, people may not be happy with President Biden right now, and they may not be happy with, things he's doing, but what else are you going to do in 2024?
This guy is a god, so do listen to him.
I think that is three options in 2024. You have Donald Trump, who's the criminal. You have Joe Biden, who represents the cowards, because I think the Democratic Party are cowards. They don't fight enough. And you got the couch. And I think, the couch is voter apathy. And I think a lot of people are going to choose to stay home in 2024.
Yeah, and whose fault is that? Okay? Whose fault is that? If that's the case, whose fault is that?
And that should scare us. The one time that people should absolutely positively be terrified and be afraid of what could happen to democracy is next year.
I think he is exactly right. So I will get to the second clip in a bit here, but these comments, first of all, yes, Trump is a fascist. This is not controversial. He tried to steal an election, not just.
That's a perfect emoji, perfect emote.
Through Jan 6 and his speeches, but literally behind the scenes tried to steal the election. That's why he's facing, 91 charges, 4 indictments. At least part of the reason. So
I watched a few of his shows. I think he's smarter than most, but no one is always right. That's true. Except for me, I'm always right.
Important to remember that. Keep that with you. How dangerous Donald Trump is and the people around him that want to see a dictator in power. But this is why I also agree with Charlemagne here. The biggest enemy of Democrats, I think, in the next election isn't Donald Trump, isn't Republicans, it's the couch. People will just stay home if they feel like how they feel right now.
Except when he's not. Yeah, no, I'm being facetious. Now, here's the thing. That point, if that is true, then whose fault is that? The fault is the Democratic Party's fault if this happens, right? Everyone is watching this like go down in real time. This slow motion train wreck, and I think that the people who are seeing the writing on the wall are basically ringing the alarm bells and going, "Hey, something's not right here." And if you don't want to change that, then yeah, I mean, we all lose.
So there's a lot of recent polling. In fact, I think I'll do a separate video on the recent NBC poll that has some very interesting insights. But essentially, Biden has hit his lowest approval rating number. He's also right now
Echo Wrestle Dragon with a tier 1 sub for 8 months. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you. Good afternoon, Elio. How's it going? There are a lot of train wrecks. Yeah, but in this case, in this case, we're just kind of talking about in this case, we're talking about like the numbers that keep popping up. Not good. Not great.
As you see here, he is dropping in support while Trump's has largely stayed the same. I mean, he's gained 1%, but he's largely stayed the same while Biden is dropping. And it's clear here Biden isn't losing to Trump.
Yeah, the reason why Trump's polling isn't going to change much is because like the people that are going to vote for him are going to vote for him. And the problem is that a lot of these Trump people, they're going to show up. Okay, they're going to show up. And anyone who's conservative leaning is probably going to show up. That's why. Yeah, polls are not votes, but you know, I mean, like, so here's the thing, like, if you consistently see the same results over and over and over again, and nothing changes, right? Like, nothing changes. We continue down the same path. We're still getting the same numbers. Election time comes, and then Joe Biden loses. No. There's no stop. Voter fraud is 0.000001%. Okay. Yeah, you can have like the handful of MAGA Republicans who tried to do voter fraud. That's not gonna make a difference. So here's the thing: if you consistently get these numbers and you're looking at the writing on the wall, and nothing changes from now to what a year from now, and it ends up that Biden loses the election, are you going to tell me the same thing? Are you going to tell me the same thing? Are you going to be singing the same tune? Suppression is the real problem, not the fraud. Yes. Fraud is like literally 0.000001%. It's so infinitesimally small that it's like the people who actually try to commit voter fraud is statistically irrelevant. It's still 11 months away. Yeah. So again, I'll ask you this question. I'll ask you the questions. If the polls continue to move in this direction, right? If the polls continue showing that Biden is losing very key swing states, and it's looking worse and worse, and more likely that these numbers will continue, and it ends up being that Biden loses the election, will you be saying the same thing? Like, what is the reaction then? The bigger danger is the legislators trying to cut the courts out of the election challenging process. Yes, the state legislators, however, that has been mostly, thankfully, ineffective. As we saw North Carolina attempt to basically throw that out there. I mean, I think they kind of stuck their foot in their own mouth on that one, but I don't know. The ABC's The View that VP Kamala Harris admitted to losing black. I mean, it's not just like people of color. It's not just black voters either. Yes, because all we can actually do is vote. So you'll be saying the same thing, even though the polls were accurately describing the moving train wreck that we were seeing a year ago. You'd still be saying the same thing. That's weird. A few other states are attempting it too. Hold on. All right, Conscious Canuck, you are now a VIP. You may post links. If you find like a couple of stories on this, Feel free to post it. Kamala is bad, true. All right, let's move on. Or let's continue.
He's losing to the couch. This is the Democrats' biggest issue. Voter apathy. You can't, as a party, as politicians, as candidates, you cannot rely on the scary other option for people to come out to vote for you. Democrats win. I think I've said this now in like every video I've ever done on Democrats and Republicans in polling and elections. Democrats win when turnout is high. They lose when turnout is low. When you have, I mean, the foreign policy part of this right now is, I think, important to this conversation as it stands. Who knows where we will be in a year?
Right. So again, like this right now is not good. If something changes down the line, then it'll be a different story. But yeah.
And if the anger there still holds. But that's definitely a piece of it, especially for younger voters that see the Biden administration as no different than Republicans when it comes to foreign policy. Clearly, when it comes to this enabling of the far right-wing Israeli government, I mean, I don't want to go down a hole again because I've done 1,000 videos on that conflict in particular. But when you see the amount of the level of young support that Biden is losing, foreign policy is a piece of it, but also just generally, like when you are this close to Republicans on issues like healthcare, when you're still fighting for private healthcare as opposed to public universal healthcare, when you're still this close to Republicans on
Introducing the
Ah! What is this, a toy? Oh, it's a pepper spray.
issues of, the climate crisis, sure, you could say, oh, Democrats they care more.
The last 7 minutes? Well, we'll see if we have time for this. Hold on. The last 7 minutes. All right.
'40s and his approval ratings, are those valid?
So here's the thing. I think it's important to share that American people do approve of some of the president's initiative. I think it is important. I think it's important for the American people to hear that when it comes to Medicare and fighting and being able to, Medicare to be able to lower costs for the American people. I think it's important to share.
And he was asked about the dismal state of his job approval ratings. And he answered in words to this effect, do you know anyone that believes the polling these days? And he talked in some detail about the difficulty.
Yeah, this is wild. Like if your response to like continuous data showing like pointing to one area and you're just like, well, does anybody actually believe the polls? Oh man, that's not great. And approval ratings of like of how a president is doing is not the same as what people might choose as like surveying what the polls say about like how people will vote. Yeah, these are two different things. Yeah, so yeah, if your response to if your response to like polling indicating like you're in trouble, and it's like, oh man, come on, Jack, does anybody actually believe the polls? I don't know, man. That's not great. That's not good.
This time, any policy announcement to make at this time?
Thank you, as always. I want to ask about...
You might regret it, but go ahead.
I assure you, you will not. I want to ask about polling. In February, the president conducted an interview with, I believe it was Telemundo, and he was asked about the dismal state of his job approval ratings. And he answered in words to this effect, do you know anyone that believes the polling these days? And he talked in some detail about the difficulty of getting people on the phone and compiling accurate polling. Whenever you're asked about the president's dismal job approval ratings, you say we're not going to look at polls. We look at his accomplishments. And yet, when you are asked about various domestic...
Yeah. I mean, this is not a good like attitude to have. when people are asking like, "Hey man, what's with the like abysmal numbers?" Like your immediate response would be like, "Oh, snap. Yeah, we probably should do something about this, right?" What? Okay. Yeah. Denial. This is not good. It sounds like denial to me. I also had a Forbes business video, 3 months in polling. Yeah, I mean, like you could try to deconstruct. You can try to deconstruct and like say like, oh well, you know, this is why we shouldn't like. These are the issues with polling, and like, yeah, I'm pretty sure you could find problems with polling, but the point still stands that like this isn't just like one poll. This isn't just like two polls. This isn't just like recent polling. This is the same numbers or similar numbers that you're getting. At this point, it's been months, and it's not good. Objectively, it's just not good. The phone thing is an issue, yeah, but now there's different ways of getting polls, right? It's not just limited to landlines. We have newer technology that doesn't just limit it to landlines. The job numbers are not bad. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It's how people feel. It's people's perception. But like they're just using it as an excuse to say we don't know what people think. Really, it's just not being used. I don't know. I think there are polling that uses not just landlines. I'm pretty sure. I took YouGov polls on the internet. Yeah, but it's not just YouGov. I think if you just hang on to like one poll or one pollster, that's not accurate either, right? Because you're gonna find problems. You're gonna find problems with one pollster's methodology. But Hillary has very good polling and lost electorally. Yeah, and she won the popular vote within the margin of the polls, right? She won the popular vote within the margins of the polls of how they showed. Does that make sense? So to say that like it has no to try to argue that like we shouldn't be paying attention to this and it's not looking good, I just feel like it's just denial, right?
More about the climate. They sure sound like they do in speeches. Is anything really that different? I mean, the climate crisis, healthcare, the cost of education, low wages, go down the list. Yes, there are differences, of course, especially when it comes to, more socialist, when it comes to abortion, I think, which is why Democrats are really going to run on abortion. That is the one clear difference between the two parties. But issues like that, issues of trans rights, state to state, you can see the differences there. So there are, of course, differences, which is why it's important to understand that Trump is a fascist, and that there are differences. But you, as a party, as a Democratic Party, you cannot rely on that, on those differences, which in the grand scheme of things are fairly small. So, there's a year left. There's going to have to be a complete turnaround, a complete shift to the left from Joe Biden and the Democratic Party for them to gain back those young voters, or for them to even get young voters to come out to vote.
Which is my point. Like what David is saying is exactly my point. If you're looking at these numbers, if you're looking at the numbers and going, nah, this will be fine. this is not good. If you're looking at these numbers and you're like, it'll be alright. Nah. But we don't want Trump or the 2025 project. Then the Democratic Party probably should get it together and do something. Hey, Cosmic Seeking, there won't be. Wait, there won't be what? I'm confused. Not the major ones. Cosmic Seeking, how's it going? Also, let me give a quick thank you, Alio for the 12 biddies and Heat for the 13 biddies. I feel like we've heard this argument before, vote Biden or else. The voters, how many really 1% or 145, the negative numbers are actually voting? I mean, like, again, you maybe very challenging times these days. Yeah, maybe like oh, there won't be a turnaround. Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, like, the point being is like, you know, if the Democratic Party wants to put their heads in the sand and want to be like, well, come on, man. Come on, Jack. Who believes the polls anyways? And then, like, a year later, surprise Pikachu face. Damn, dude. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe,
they came out last time or not. So that's going to be a major issue. But let me get to the second clip here where Charlamagne discusses why he thinks Trump is gaining with some black voters.
So if you believe the polls, Donald Trump is picking up support among black voters, and especially among young black voters. How do you explain that?
Okay. If you have a community, and I can't speak for all black people aren't monolithic, but I'm just telling you based off conversations that I've had and what I see. If you have a community who feels like they've never been spoken to, you know, by the government, ever, like American government has, you know, ignored them, not paid them any attention, and let's just say all of a sudden you start getting checks in the mail one day, the stimulus checks, what they call stimmies in the hood for $1,200, and this man's name is on them, Donald Trump. For the first time in probably forever, you just simply feel seen. And you can talk to your next door neighbor about actually receiving something from the American government. Another thing, the First Step Act. You know, people see the First Step Act. If you know somebody who
criminal justice reform.
The criminal justice reform. Yeah. If you know somebody who actually came home because of the First Step Act, and you have Donald Trump taking credit for that, that's another thing you can point to and say, man, Donald Trump not only let one of my peoples out of jail, he also sent us money. This is the guy taking credit for all of these things happening. And I think, believe it or not, that stuff is having impact.
Do you think that...
yeah, again, whether or not that's true, that's people's perception. And they vote accordingly, even if it's not necessarily true. At the end of the day, like, to say that, like, Donald Trump has, like, any, like, care for anybody is just, like, ludicrous. He doesn't care. He doesn't care about anybody. But that perception that, like, hey, he got the stimulus checks to people, yeah, that does have an impact. I feel like they planned on us all loving Kamala. Now that that has failed, they want us to elect Biden so he can resign, and then we'll be so happy to have the first female president. I don't know if it's like that, but oh man, if that's the plan, whoo boy. I don't think so. Well, they won't want to be talked to by a MAGA Nazi state. Yeah, but people's perceptions, you know, that's just how they feel. 5 ways Democrats are coping with Biden's terrible poll. Yeah, this is actually criticizing Democrats' denial of polling. Poll after poll is about bad news for Biden, whether the incumbent is trailing behind the Republican challenger, getting a new low of approval, or seeing the majority of Democrats raise concern about his age. The numbers should be disconcerting for the Biden camp. Despite the grim data, Democrats are sticking with their man, and rather than confronting just how bleak things look at the moment, many Democrats are finding solace in a cycle of self-soothing spin that explains away the difficult political reality. Here are some of those rationalizations and why they may not be so rock solid. Biden was underestimated in 2020. That is a completely different election. the completely different election to now from 2020. People were motivated to come out just to get Trump out. That was one of the main drivers. It's not because Biden inspired people to come out to the polls. Okay, it's just that people felt the need to remove Trump from office so badly that the turnout was unprecedented. We haven't had turnout like that in 100 years. That's not going to happen in 2024. A repeat of that is most likely not going to happen. So yeah, to say that like, oh, he was, to cope and to twist yourself into mental gymnastics, like, oh, well, they underestimated him in 2020. Polls out this far aren't predictive. As bad as the numbers look now, some Democrats like to say, don't forget they could still change. The only thing you can be sure of after today's NBC poll is that people will short circuit again. Polls a year out is about as good as predicting the election results at the magic 8 ball would be. Oh yeah, former Barack Obama campaign manager Jim Messina pointed out on Twitter, they just don't show the full picture. Well, that's true. The polls are not a crystal ball, but they show where things stand, and at this moment, where they stand isn't great. That's it. Yeah, I mean, like that's the point right here. So maybe like do something. But Trump is much worse. Yeah, he is. One tactic Democrats and liberal commentators use to counter Biden's vulnerabilities is to highlight Trump's egregious faults. For instance, writer Michael Tomasky recently countered a wave of Biden's age, a key concern for most voters with a long catalog of Trump's misdeeds. Tomasky's included some of Trump's most infamous. Yeah, this is like a pivot. This is like a pivot, right? But Trump's worse. Yeah. So how does that Trump is worse, great. But what does that have to do with Biden? He's the one that's currently in power, right? Latino backlash grows over Trump's friendly Univision interview. What? It's more of a corporate media fighting progressive agenda? Maybe. Dems will always find it hard swimming upstream in a right-wing press-supported river. Dems would do well to just do stuff. Biden campaign works to ease. Whoa. All right, hold on. Not feeling good. Gonna lurk for now. Jeez, I hope you're all right. Feel better. Biden campaign works to ease Democratic anxiety over re-election chances. If it doesn't involve like acknowledging like what the reality is at this point, then like this is cope, right? Over the last few weekends of September, Hollywood titan Ari Emanuel, brother of former Chicago mayor and current Japan ambassador Rahm Emanuel, hosted his annual off-the-record power conference, gathering fellow luminaries of entertainment, finance, politics, and technology in Sundap. Wait, what does this have to do with... At one point during the political panel that included Ron Klain, the President Biden's former chief of staff, an audience member worried aloud that the Democratic Party had a serious problem. Biden is too old and could lose the election. This person fretted before asking the question that has been disquieting Democratic circles for more than a year. What is the backup plan? Klain's rebuttal was swift, recalled one attendee who spoke on the condition of anonymity to share candid details of the private event, the president's nominee. The president is the party's nominee, Klain said, and a strong nominee at that. That's not... that's... Okay. The audience rumbled with exasperation and disbelief, grumbling at the lack of Plan B. But some Democrats later approached Klain to thank him for his forceful defense of Biden. So Similar scenes have been playing out repeatedly since Biden's allies play whack-a-mole with the prevailing anxiety reflected in early polling that Biden could lose in an increasing likely rematch between Trump. Facing calls to become more active and aggressive, Biden and his team have responded with versions of Clayton's defiance. They have rejected concerns in private briefings with donors and allies that have otherwise stayed the course on mostly behind-the-scenes working of testing ads, organizing outreach efforts that will deploy at large scale next year. This portrait of Democratic anxiety and the Biden campaign effort to contain the party's crisis of confidence is the result of 30 interviews with Democratic aides, strategists. The central concern is that Biden turns 81 on Monday, has lost step, and is showing visible signs of aging. I mean, like, that's not even, like, the top problem, honestly. But I guess most people's concern is that he has struggled to sell his economic accomplishments. There are worries that his campaign, so far devoid of major events or organizing efforts, is not doing enough to deal with the public hand-wringing over his chances. How are the coming threat of Trump 77? Unease is evident across the party. Blah, 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 blah. Some of Biden's biggest donors, who have already given hundreds of thousands to his efforts, have privately expressed a desire for a more open primary. Others fear that Biden risks endangering both his legislative legacy and his status as the Trump slayer if he loses next year. People with familiar with the okay, but this isn't giving me answers. Democrats close to the campaign are also growing and increasingly alarmed about its strategy, or more specifically, what they worry is the lack thereof. Yeah, so this is just like a bunch of concerns, but no serious rebuttals. No serious rebuttals. The real plan B should be that the whole party should be thrust into a comparative process. He said in an interview, we're at the kind of inflection point. It's good to take stock of where this is at, and it's good to have these discussions. I was hoping Feinstein would run. No, you can't be serious. Is that a joke? Biden has been playing too nice with his detractors. He has to use his platform to call out Trump and the MAGA. Well, I mean, they're just Republicans, right? But the point is, it's not just to call out, like, the Republicans. It's to do something. I mean, do something, anything. If you're looking at these, like, abysmal numbers and, like, you're not doing anything policy-wise, like, actually, like, policy. Okay, it is sarcastic. Okay, hold on. I'm sorry. I'm tired. That's pretty funny. That's pretty funny. If I had my soundboard, I would give you a little ba-dum-tsh. Is Biden toast? Obama won re-election despite Biden-esque polling numbers, but the comparison only goes so far. There's no point in comparing the Obama election to this one. Yeah, this just seems like the Democratic Party is just gonna stick their heads in their sand. So they're not gonna do anything about this. I mean, we'll take the same. We'll ask the same questions 6 months from now, and see where we're at in comparison, right? Is the DNC and RNC changing? No, it's not. It's not even about that. Right now, right now, if the DNC is going to continue to force this issue, then yeah, But ultimately, it's up to Biden and the Democratic Party. So again, I ask you, if the polls continue to show the same numbers 6 months from now, if the polls continue to show the same numbers 6 months from now, will the response be the same? What if Biden loses? Will the response be the same? Like, oh, well, we just shouldn't. Well, next time we run an election, I guess we just shouldn't pay attention to all the warning signs that were there. Like, is that going to be the same response? I do think once the guilty verdict starts, it will have an effect on Trump. Actually, maybe that may be the case, and maybe we'll talk a different story if that happens. That might be the case. But right now it's not. The electoral time. Okay, but I'm just saying, if the polling is consistent and continues on the same way, and there's no changes, and Biden loses the election, what then? Do we still say, like, maybe we just shouldn't pay attention to the warning signs? We should just leave polls, or whatever. There's just a year from now. Polls, who believes them anyways, as Biden said. Are we gonna sing the same tune? I hope not. This is the full article from what was mentioned above. Obama won re-election despite Biden's polling numbers, but the comparison only goes so far. Yeah, I mean, this would be a completely different election. The Atlantic finally moving into modernity by giving us the gifting option. Nice. The tide turned when Jen Psaki left the press conferences. The message got lost. I don't think it was that. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know about that one. It's a year before the presidential election, and Democrats are panicking. The incumbent is unpopular, and voters are refusing to give him credit for overseeing an economic rebound. Polls show him losing to the Republican challenger. Not just the Republican challenger, Trump. Well, what's true now was almost true 12 years ago. Today, Democrats are alarmed by recent surveys that finding that Biden trails Trump in 5 swing states, but they were just as scared in the fall of 2011, when President Obama's approval rating languished in the low 40s, and a pair of national polls showed him losing to Mitt Romney. Yeah, to Mitt Romney. The former Massachusetts governor would become the GOP nominee. Barely 1/3 of the independent voters say Obama deserved a second term. New York Times covered the story, asked the question on many Democrats' mind: is Obama toast? A year later, Obama beat Romney handily by a margin of 126 in the Electoral College and 5 million in the popular vote. Those results... Wait, what? Those results are comforting Democrats who want to believe that Biden is no far off than Obama at this point in the presidency. Yeah, but this is completely different. We're talking a completely different ballgame with a completely different political landscape from the Obama years to now. I don't think that it's wise to say, like, oh yeah, like this, yeah, dude, we've seen this story before, when there's no parallel to it. Yet the comparison only goes so far. The most obvious difference is that Biden, who turns 81, is nearly 3 decades older than Obama was at the second time of his term. He's also much older than Clinton and Bush were during their re-election bids. Voters across party lines cite Biden's age as a top concern, and the majority of Democrats have told pollsters for the past 2 years that he shouldn't run again. Jesus Christ. They have literally told him for years. I still think that Obama's the best president the US has ever had. Pfft, not even close. I don't think so. Not even close. Voters across party lines cite Biden's age as a top concern. A majority of Democrats have told pollsters for the past 2 years that he shouldn't run again. Obama was in the prime of his political career, an electrifying orator that could re-energize the Democratic base with a few well-timed speeches. Not even Biden's biggest defenders would claim that he has the same ability. Plus, put simply, he looks and he sounds his age. In a recent CNN poll showed that Trump with 4 percentage points lead over Biden. Just a quarter of respondents said that the president had the stamina and sharpness to serve. More than half of the 77-year-old, more than half said the 77-year-old Trump did. Privately, Democratic lawmakers and aides have fretted that the White House has kept the president too caged in fear of a verbal or physical stumble. At the same time, they worry that a diminished Biden is unable to deliver a winning economic message to voters. The greatest concern is that his biggest liability is the one thing he can't change, said David Axelrod, Obama's chief strategist, that wrote on Twitter, on the day that the New York Times and Siena College released polls showing that Trump's ahead of Biden by as much as 10 points in battleground states. Yeah, like, you know, it's if you're ahead by like a couple points, you know, that's within the margin of error, which is why I keep referring to it as a coin flip. Once you start crossing over to 10 double digits, that's not good. Democrats are hesitant to admit publicly, and his gentle suggestion that Biden at least consider the wisdom of running again renewed concerns that the president and his party ignoring the consistent message of their voters. Nominate somebody else. Well, they should have thought about this years ago. Who do you place tops then? I don't know. Like, I think that a lot of presidents have their problems. A lot of presidents have their problems. I think, like, at least, like, FDR, more or less, like, given his own issues, I think he would be, he did more palpable changes than Obama did. Lincoln is just mythology. He would be wrecked by the modern world. Well, yeah, because he's not from the modern world, question mark? That doesn't make any sense. I mean, beating the Confederacy was pretty based. Definitely one of the top top moments. I go all the way back to JFK, and I mean, even JFK, I think I would put above Obama. Trump's rallies are getting worse and less people. Clinton was very popular, but also, like, he was pretty garbage too. Was a very flawed character. I don't know what that means. FDR declined the calls to make him temporary emperor and forced the Supreme Court to quit being corrupt. Yeah, I mean, like, among, like, putting in some of, like, the most, I guess at the time, pretty robust policies. I believe he made Social Security. I mean, like, damn. But was he good, or just presidents in good economy plus his policies were very conservative? Anywho, you could probably find like an umpteenth like billion problems because, like, you know, U.S. presidents have always found themselves into problems, but FDR was all about taxing the highest income bracket. Yeah, it's pretty based, I think, at least in that policy. perspective. Yeah. I'm pretty sure he also invented Social Security. Not invented, but like he enacted it. Yeah, he did. FDR literally made Social Security. Like, I don't know. Plus all the public works, yeah. At the very least, as far as like presidents go, because like nobody's hands are clean, I think some of the legislative accomplishments of FDR like are way better than Obama. Way better than Obama. Like, till this day, we still have Social Security. Among other things, of course, but... Anyways, Tuesday's election results in which Democratic candidates causes notch wins in Virginia, blah, 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 help allay the concerns, at least for some in the party. It's way too early to either pop the champagne or hang up the funeral crepe, said Steve Israel, from the former New York representative who chaired the Democratic House campaign arm during the Obama's presidency. Told me on Wednesday Biden has the advantage of time, money, a bully pulpit, and based on last night's results, the fact that voters in battleground areas seem to agree with Democrats on key issues like abortion. Well, whether or not they agree is one thing. The thing is, you need to get them out. You need to get them out to vote. That's the thing. There's no one here who lived with FDR, and yet I will be a benefit of that policy. I was alive during the Obama years. I think the second election is where I was able to vote, and I voted for him, and yeah, he didn't really do much for as far as like working class goes. So yeah, there's that. Question wasn't who was the best president during your lifetime. Anyways, moving on. Yeah, like even during my lifetime, like what did Obama do? Necessarily, like that was so significant that I'm feeling like the ramifications. Yeah, I don't know. The Biden campaign has embraced the victories as part of a continuation trend. The Democrats have performed better in recent elections than the president's polling would suggest. Time and time again, Joe Biden beats the expectations. No. At this point, well, JFK had had trouble in Martha's Vineyard. Like, I don't care. I don't care about scandals. I care about policy. The bottom line is that a poll is that a year out don't matter. The Democrats' strength in off-year elections may not contradict Biden's lackluster standing in a hypothetical matchup against Trump. Political realignment since Obama's presidency, which college-educated suburban voters have drifted left, while the working-class voters have joined Trump's GOP, have given Democrats the upper hand in lower turnout elections. Traditionally, left-leaning constituencies have soured on Biden, including young and non-white voters, tend to only show up for presidential votes. I don't think that was... Yeah, I don't know. Anyways, are we done? Obama did do something. He bombed the shit out of Flint. Well, he bombed he droned the crap out of the Middle East. So yeah, I guess there's that, right? Hey, look up how much the civilian casualty rate was during like these drone strikes. Look up the civilian casualty rates. Yeah. JFK got shot. Okay. I understand what the point of that is, yeah, he got shot. He got assassinated. Yep. As Messina pointed out, the overall economy is better now than it was in late 2011 under Obama, when the unemployment rate was still over 8%, more than double the current rate of 3.9. But voters don't seem to feel that way. The biggest economic preoccupation is not job, but high prices. And although the rate of inflation has come down, prices have not, because capitalism. What voters believe Biden is focused on jobs, and what they care most about is inflation. Right. So like this, like, oh, but the job numbers, great. Can we still afford groceries? Yeah, so the jobs isn't necessarily the numbers that people care about. It's very alarming, said Evan Rothman, who oversaw the poll, told reporters at presentation. The finding this week tells a lot. The story about why Bidenomics is not resonating and not redounding to the benefit of the president. None of the Democrats I interviewed was pitting for another nominee. Others downplayed Biden's poor polling, particularly finding the Democrats don't want him to run again. The reasoning, however, hinted at a sense of resignation about the coming campaign. Israel compared the choice of voters face-to-face, a person deciding whether or not to renew a lease on their car. I'm not sure I want to extend this lease until I look at other models and realize I'm going to stick with what I have. Yeah, this doesn't answer, like, the point, right? That I'm trying to, like, hammer down. Like, are we gonna still say the same thing? You know, if Biden ends up losing the election?
Democratic politicians.
Because, like, I'm be honest, it's gonna be very, like, it's gonna be. I think it's if Biden loses the election, and people are still gonna be like, but the polls, nobody believes the polls. Like, okay, dude, you saw the writing on the wall. A year from now, this is not new, and yeah, it's gonna look really bad. It's gonna look really bad. The proper response should be like, yeah, we were wrong. We were wrong.
Take the black vote for granted and get offended when somebody like you just asks them a question, just challenges them.
100%. You know, and anytime you're a person that is people think is left leaning, if you just simply question what the Democratic Party.
Maybe no. I'm saying the opposite. I'm saying that these polls right now are showing that Biden's not doing too well. What if Biden doesn't change his approach, right? Because again, I don't know what the landscape is going to look like a couple months from now. But if he continues down the same path, and yeah, I can't really allow that. Stop it. What I'm trying to ask is if the polls right now are showing that Biden's not doing too well, Biden doesn't adjust the strategy, the numbers continue to show obviously the same results, because if you're not adjusting your strategy, people are going to feel the same way. You're not doing anything to address them. Polls are going to still look the same. Biden ends up losing the election. Now what?
Party is doing. You either get accused of being a closeted Republican or, attempting to help Donald Trump win elections.
Okay, I want to get to his comments on the stimulus checks because I feel incredibly vindicated. But before I get to that, these comments here about the reaction that the Democratic Party has, and we're talking about, politicians, advocates for the Democratic Party, people that work within the Democratic Party. The reaction.
The lack of debates is disturbing. It's scary that not debating is acceptable. You mean like the primary? You mean like the primary? Biden's running his not running his election. He has people for that. No. So if your people, if your constituents, the people who are going to turn out and vote for you or stay home, feel like you're not listening to them, the result is going to be the same, right? The point is, Biden has decisions to make as president. Imagine if they actually listen to the polls and change course right now, then the polls would change. Like, hey, no better model and indicator of this. Like, remember when Biden was like was announcing the was announcing the student debt relief? What happened to the polls during that time? When Biden was trying to announce the student debt relief, what happened to the polls and the approval ratings at that time? Primary, and they're saying that there would be no debates in general if Trump was the nominee. Biden can't change much with the Republican Party in Congress. It doesn't matter. The point is, you have to try. That's no excuse. Because, like, what didn't he just have a moment in the opening parts of his presidency? Didn't he have a moment where the Democrats controlled both the House and the Senate, and nothing was attempted to be done? Like, this isn't good enough. Do you understand? And besides, Biden does have certain amount of powers that he can do a couple things. He can't do everything. He can't, flick a switch and everything's good. But there are things he can do. The Tanny Boy, welcome. Thank you for the follow.
That those people have to criticisms from the left is completely opposite to what the Republican Party's reaction is to criticisms from their base.
Like ordering his administration to not approve more oil pipelines. He can literally make a declaration of a national emergency to address the climate crisis. I think it's a complicated situation. I don't think it's as straightforward as listen to polls, do things, polls go up. And when there are many facets of which each steps that are unpredictable, I do still lean on the idea that the non-white trend is going to be actual more concerned than the youth trend. Well, it's obviously not like, I'm putting it in a very simplistic term, but that was a perfect example of like, if you do policies, that reflect what your constituents want, that's probably going to result in positive numbers in the polls, right? I mean, like, generally speaking, I think that's true. I just gave an example of how that kind of manifests itself. Obviously, it's not always one-to-one, but that's an example. The GOP would make hay if he did that. Cool. And why does he care what the GOP? Why would anybody care what the GOP has to think about that? He's not there to make buddy. He shouldn't be there to make buddy buddies with them. He shouldn't be there to be like, oh, well, I can't do anything because the Republicans might scream. And? How much do polls match with winning elections? He can't give the GOP ammunition. What ammunition? Doing the right thing? I don't care what the GOP has to say. Like, why would anybody care what the GOP has to say? You have to worry about what the people that are going to vote for you are going to say. I mean, I'm just speaking on purely like electoral strategy, right? The GOP used the filibuster to stop a lot despite the Democratic control. They would have changed the rules, but Sinema and Manchin, damn, who both were Democrats. Where the hell is Biden? I mean, like, hey, what are you doing? Again, how much do polls match with winning elections? Pretty decently. I agree. I get frustrated with the argument, but the Republicans would hate that and not vote for that. Why is Biden bowing down to the Republicans? He should be making policy to appeal to his base. Right. Like, from a purely electoral standing point, that's what you should be doing, like, just from a political standpoint. But it's also just do the right freaking thing, regardless. Like, why do I care what the GOP says? Oh, no, they're going to scream about it. They're going to scream about it. Like, okay, and? Snark Kitty, thank you for the follow. I appreciate it. I mean, like, no better example of this than like the ads that they made where like Republicans were like, oh, you know, Biden's evil plan of finishing FDR's legacy. Like, what are they gonna do? Do that? Young people are very infrequent voters anyways, and the ones that do are usually pretty banked in because they're the we vote fascism. They're the we vote or fascism type people, but the non-white erosion is more distinct because I think it could represent a more long-term change in the pattern. It's been said that ideological values, lots of non-whites don't really align with Democrats. They align with Republicans, but they retain a strong historical habit. Break a habit, though, and you're not going back. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I agree. Young people are very infrequent or very unreliable. But they can't. Normally, young people would show up for Democrats. Normally, it's not always the case, but they are a base, and also, yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right. I think the trends have shown what you're talking about. That's a very real possibility. They will ask for concessions or to pass the bill. Yep. Forget the polls. Here's what actual election results can tell us about 2024. But they're not from 2023. They're from 2019 when Joe Biden... God, these ads. How do I get rid of this? Okay. When Joe Biden's third bid for presidency appeared to be crash and burning. In 2019, there's... Wait a minute. Oh. In 2018, there's plenty of polls suggest that Biden would lose the race for the Democratic nomination, and by some chance, no, this is completely different. This is what people think that they were losing. He was going to lose the Democratic nomination because at the time, that's what the polls were leaning towards, and also, this is a completely different landscape. If Biden gotten the student debt loans done, he would have a winner. Well, he would have had a much better chance. A much better chance. Or at the very least, something he can point to. But Northam won the nomination to secure the presidency with a relative ease, winning the fall of the election with 7 million popular vote margin. And a 306 to 232 advantage. Okay, so wait a minute. The 2019 election, right? Because it was Biden. How about the colleges give back the money? What? It's not within the power of the Fed to forgive loans? Yeah, it is. Absolutely, it is. What? What? That's not how that works. Absolutely, it is within the power of the Fed. Wait. How do you think that this was going to work to begin with? Like, how do you think that some of these loans were forgiven? Here's a question: when you see this this poll here, from the last election, do we not believe this poll? Do we not believe it? Do we just say like, polls don't matter? Incidentally, Biden won that election, if we remember what happened in 2020. So do we just look at this and go like, well, I guess polls, like, mind you, I'm just taking a snippet, an example, because a lot of polls were indicating double-digit leads in favor of Biden at that time, months before the election. So we're just, so if I showed you this, you would just be like, nah, I think that I think that these polls aren't votes or whatever. What? Would you say the same thing? Like, oh, polls aren't votes. Whatever. Doesn't make any sense, right?
And I'll tell you exactly why. It's because of capitalism. Republicans' criticisms.
No. I'm talking about the poll. Are you saying that poll is just like we shouldn't listen to it? They're just polls. They're not, polls don't equal votes. So I guess we shouldn't pay attention to that months before. And by the way, that wasn't the only poll. That was a very, very consistent trend as to where the 2020 election was going months before it happened. I just took one out of thin air. So we would be, would we say that this poll is just polls, not votes, and we should just, or are we like, it sounds like and it looks like every answer is pointing us towards like Biden's probably going to win the presidency, right? And what happened in that election? I mean, you're talking about double-digit leads. I think that's pretty solid, right?
Of their party does not threaten capitalism. The left-wing criticisms of the Democratic Party does threaten capitalistic powers. That is the main difference. So in case you're wondering why there is a different reaction, it's not simply because Democrats hate their base, although they do. It's because of the threat to capitalism. So, I mean, perfect example is healthcare. The reason why the Democratic Party overall is not fighting to, for Medicare for all, to eliminate private insurance as a requirement for healthcare, is because of capitalism. They want those private interests in there because those private interests are intertwined with their party. So that's, one example, but you can go on the list that you can insert capitalism into every single policy issue of the Democratic Party, and It's largely a reason as to why the Democratic Party is off of where their base is. Now, on the stimulus checks, when this first happened, I shouldn't just say I did this. Many people on the left discussed that this was a brilliant political move by Donald Trump. Again, it's important to be able to separate. You can criticize Donald Trump, the person, the president, separate that from the brilliant moves he has made politically in terms of how it's viewed by the masses. These stimulus checks, putting his name on the checks, brilliant political move that Joe Biden, for some reason, did not replicate. Joe Biden also sent out stimulus checks. He didn't put his name on them. I don't know why. Just stupid politics not to do that. So as ABC News writes here, in the end, President Donald J. Trump appeared below the words economic impact payment on the memo line of the final version of the checks, which were sent to 35 million Americans.
Donald J. Trump.
Unlike Trump, Joe Biden's name did not appear on a new round of stimulus checks that started going out this spring, although, like Trump, Biden did sign a letter mailed to Americans to notify them about the payments. Just complete political malpractice to not just do what Trump did and put your name on the checks. Really stupid. So, it's hard to know exactly why. There is some growth in support. Obviously, as Charlemagne points out there, just like all voters, there's no monolith, right? Like trying to act like, oh, black voters are, some of them are supporting Trump more now because of this one thing it's ridiculous. I'm sure there's a variety of reasons. But this generally, I think, did help Trump in the eye of the public, having his name on these checks that they get and they get to cash. So, again, we're a year away. I keep saying this whenever I cover these polls and this election, because so much can change. These may not even be the candidates. Who knows? Both of them are very old. So, and Trump is facing 91 charges, 4 indictments. Anything can change. Anything can happen. So it's impossible to know where we are going to be in a year from now. But the way things are looking, Democrats should be very concerned about turnout. And, complaining about people and trying to, I don't know, like shame them, if that's even the proper term here.
Also, yeah, that's true. I just thought about something. That's true that we're out a year, and it's also true that we don't know what might happen in the next couple months or maybe in the next 6 months before the election. But that might be the case. That these candidates don't end up being the candidates. I mean, it is a possibility, although probably very low. But why don't we deal with what we do know and what we're looking at here and now? Why aren't we looking at what we know with the here and now and adjust with whatever incoming data as it that we have right now? We act with the information that we have on hand. If things change, then you act accordingly. Right? Trump sent out letters months later reminding me that he sent, your favorite president, do you know who sent out those checks? Me.
Into voting is not going to work, even though it seems like it does appear like the rational thing would be to ensure Trump doesn't gain power again. That doesn't mean you're going to get people out to vote. That responsibility is on the Democratic Party. They have to actually listen to their base. And
yeah, that's another thing. Again, if it ends up being the case that Biden loses the election, that's on the Democrats' fault. That's their fault. They're the ones that are responsible for this.
The only way to do that is be willing to challenge capitalism.
All right, let's do a quick meme segment because this is, yeah. Well, let's just listen. We don't need to preface this. Just listen, okay? From one of the most brilliant minds on the right-wing intelligentsia, okay? One of the intellectual titans, okay? Intellectual titans of the right wing.
So my wife got me this weird new kitchen.
Whoa! No, I don't need a big knife, but thanks.
Let's face it, folks, polls recently have shown that President Biden is facing a very tough path to re-election. And because of that, people...
Wait, let me drink this hemlock. Wait a minute. Yeah, the gender affirming knife.
People are starting to freak out a little bit. The White House doesn't seem to be freaking out.
All right, so let's hear this assessment.
I don't know if they're just not paying attention to the polls or if they don't believe them, but they're acting like these poll numbers, ones that show Trump beating Biden in the swing states, others that show Trump beating Biden nationally, and of course Biden's terrible approval rating. White House just doesn't seem to care. But the voters do. And recently, I posted asking for questions for a Q&A session, and I want to address one of those questions right now. In fact, actually two of those questions, because a lot of people ask the same thing. So let me read these two. First one is from Donovan Finley, 8131, which, by the way, thank you, Donovan. I think every time I do a Q&A, I see your name, so thank you for being an active participant. Donovan Finley asks, is President Biden actually in danger of losing re-election? I get that most of the polls show a tight race, but I think Biden's done a decent job, and he's definitely better than that guy with 91 charges against him. Then another question from the awesome Chris 6354, who asked basically the same thing. He says, do you think President Biden will defeat Trump in next year's election? You're very well versed on these issues. What do you think the odds are of Biden being reelected? I'm also a huge fan of your channel. Well,
so again, my prediction right now is that it's a coin flip. I have not wavered from that. The point of me going very hard is because there are some alarming signs.
Thank you very much, guys. So here's the thing. Like y'all both pointed out, like polls are bad. The polls are bad for Biden. But the polls are also bad. Think back. Not the most recent New York Times poll that says, oh God, Trump's beating Biden in 5 of the 6 swing states. Think of the New York Times poll before that. That's like, oh my God, Trump's beating Biden by like 20 points among young voters. Like, that's not true. It turns out that that first New York Times poll that had the really horrible results for Biden, they oversampled Republicans. In fact, 60%, according to what I've seen, about 60% of the respondents identified as Republican or Republican leaning. So right off the bat, that is not a representative sample of the United States. That poll is trash. Second poll, I do not necessarily have that kind of information yet, but I don't see how that's possible. You know, I can't say for sure that Biden's easily going to cruise to re-election. The polls obviously don't show that. Unless Trump gets convicted, then all those 5 swing states flip to Biden, and then he easily wins re-election. And I do think Trump will get a couple convictions, at least, out of all of this. However, back to the point here.
We don't know that. And here's a follow-up question. Here's a follow-up question. How much will a conviction, or maybe several convictions, actually diminish Trump's support versus like how much do you think those convictions will generate energy for his base to show up?
Recent elections have shown that these polls are garbage. You got Democrats winning in red states. You've got liberal policy issues winning on the ballot in red states. So the polls are showing us one thing. Oh, be scared. Look at all this horrible crap here. And then when we see the election results, it's like, oh, okay, wow, Democrats are actually overperforming. Huh. So there is some kind of disconnect here. A disconnect between what voters are actually doing, which is the only thing that matters, versus what voters are allegedly telling the pollsters. And I say allegedly because think of it this way. If this 2024 presidential race was just already a blowout by President Biden, right? If Biden was just crushing it in the polls and everything showed he was going to win no matter what, do you know what that de-incentivizes people to do? De-incentivizes, however it is?
I don't think his base can show up more. True.
They don't read the news as much, right? Like you're not going to be tuning into CNN to see, oh God, like how close is it today? Oh Lord, oh God. The media has to have a horse race. And if one horse is ahead by however they measure horse races, I don't know. But if you're like, oh, well, that horse is like 2 laps ahead of everybody, of course he's going to win. I don't need to watch this. But if they're neck and neck, it's going to be a photo finish, folks. Oh my God, you're on the edge of your seat. Holy crap, what's going to happen? Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. You're glued to the TV. You're glued to the media outlets watching the horse race. That's what the media needs. So that's why the media hypes up these polls. And that's why they ask questions in such a way that the results become misleading because of the way the questions are asked. Look, as a political science major in college, we took courses on political polling. We know that polls can be easily manipulated. Change one word in a question here, change one word there. Suddenly, you get different results because people get a little bit confused. I'm not saying that polling is 100% unreliable, but I am saying that for the last, what's it been, 8 years? Polling has been wildly unreliable. So,
Wait, but also I just thought about something. He said something to the effect of like, I just thought about something. He said something like, oh, well, abortion is a winning issue even in red states. Well, yeah, because if you ask an individual if they want bodily autonomy, they're going to say yes. It's not like, oh, are you going to vote Republican or Democrat? I mean, I'm loving this video, but I'm not fair and balanced. Yeah, I'm disagreeing with the conclusion that he's reached. I'm disagreeing with the conclusion that he's reached because, like, it seems very odd that we get consistent numbers showing a certain pattern or showing a certain trend versus like, okay, yeah, we had these outliers. We had these problematic polls, but what does the general overall picture tell you? I don't think polling has been wildly unreliable either. I'm sure we could collect a series of polls and surveys that this guy would say are spot on for national sentiment. True. Well, the disconnect is more likely local versus national. I think it's extremely naive to assume that local patterns are representative of national and presidential elections. Yep. Abortion provides less motivation for Dems in blue states who don't feel as threatened, which matters for Congress more than the presidency. Yep. I think what he's saying is pushing more in the abortion issue, using that against Republicans. Yeah, but sure. But what I'm saying is like the juxtaposition between saying like, oh well, in a red state, in a ruby red state, we don't expect Democrats to win, but like when you actually give a individual choice of like a ballot initiative, that's a completely different story, right? So I don't know if I would agree with the idea that like we should just throw everything out and like, oh, it's just a media circus. Maybe, and maybe there isn't maybe there is an aspect of this just being a media circus, maybe. But to discount this and to say that, like, oh, we're just gonna, bury our heads in the sand, like, there's no point. The polls are unreliable. Everything is fine, folks. You know what? In fact, don't need to change anything. Just business as usual. It's gonna be all right. just seems a bit naive, right? And we know that Trump is the main driver of Republican turnout. Just now, he's not been involved in any of these local elections. Really, when it comes to presidential elections, though, he's on it, and everyone feels that the populist base loves Trump. They don't give a damn about policy and they aren't Republicans, and the ardent Republicans will just vote anything. Yeah, in 2022, Trump supported candidates didn't do great. Yeah.
Think we need to be on guard. I don't think we should ever be relaxed and comfortable, but I definitely don't think it's time to panic. Hey, everyone.
Now, again, the question would be, like, if we are seeing the same numbers in July, if we're seeing the same numbers July of next year, are you just going to say the same thing? That, well, polls don't mean anything? I guess, just... I did suggest at this time in the immediate aftermath of the Supreme Court decision on the road that we would see a bump in numbers for the midterms because it was salient, but that salience has significant diminishing returns because eventually people in blue states shrug and say, well, we still got it, and people in red states says, well, we can never have it. That's a good point. Like, if you see the same numbers now in July of 2024, are we going to have the same... are we going to have the same attitude towards, like, the polls? Are we just going to say, like, nah, everything's fine, like, just don't listen to the polls? Nothing to change here. You have a mobilization issue there where your critical issue is kind of perpetually losing its significance. Well, it depends, right? Because if you put a ballot initiative, people are going to turn out reliably. Here's my question. If the polls look the same in July of 2024, are we to discount those polls too? Or like, this is a genuine question. If the polls look the same, are we gonna have, like, the same discussion and be like, well, it just doesn't mean anything? Shrugs. No, the answer should be like, oh, damn, I guess I was wrong. I mean, unfortunately, the Democrats' plan is to do nothing and hope to look good, but in comparison to the Republicans, maybe that's a terrible strategy. We're essentially doing a repeat of 2016 to incredibly unpopular candidates. If the polls are unbalanced or oversampled, no, if the polls continue to show the same results that they've continued to show, not like not the outliers. I'm not talking about the outliers or the polls that had problems with them. I'm talking about the aggregate of data that continues to show a certain trend that is currently saying right now, if the elections were held today, right now, it would be very close. It would be very close. I think a objective assessment would be this is a coin toss, right? Is that a good assessment as to where we are right now? is a good assessment as to where we are right now to say that this presidential race right now is a coin toss. And that's not a good thing. The general vibe of the Democratic voters right now is one of fairly mixed sentiments. Lots of casual Dems have definitely bought into the Biden's old thing, which is really bad for mobilization. The economy's not terrible, but it's not fantastic, and a lot of voters are disappointed in policy failure, which I think is largely a consequence of gridlock rather than unwillingness to act. Yeah, but I mean, it doesn't matter. It's people's perception, right? It's people's perception. National polls aren't the most useful. I need polls of PA, Michigan, Wisconsin, North Carolina, Georgia. So you're saying like the key swing states, right? The legislative gridlock thing is actually a somewhat common theory in some political science. The idea that basically inaction causes dissatisfaction, which leads to constant street shuffling of government and more gridlock. Right, but like people's perception is like, well, Biden didn't do anything, right? Whether or not that's true, I'm not arguing like the the realities of things. I'm saying that like what people perceive, right, and who people blame. Anyways, the point what I was trying to say is like if you're seeing these consistent results, and that's going to be a couple months from the election, like I think that the intellectually honest answer would be like, damn, I was wrong. That's just what I would assume. All right. We got to do this. I think we should just let Matt Walsh speak for himself.
And besides, say whatever you want about, say, cigarettes.
I think it's a lot of people underestimate the influence that disgruntled with the incumbent has on voters. Any party in the U.S. now has a mountain to climb if they're an incumbent. So any additional issues that compound don't make up for good reading.
Two things cannot be denied. One, tobacco helped build this country. Okay, we would not have a country without tobacco. Without the tobacco plant, this country doesn't exist. So it has been crucial, central to this country from its foundation. The same cannot be said for marijuana. Tobacco.
Oh, God. Hold on. Yeah. It may be more about the labor involved in the species of the plant. Hemp was important too, and rice, and later of cotton. You're wrong, Walsh. It was actually a tobacco plant that built America.
Is as American as apple pie. It is. You don't have to like it, but it is.
Yep.
Second, I would.
Hey, Matt, how did that this type of industry how did this type of industry come to be? Like, what was the driving force behind it?
Much rather live in a society filled with people who are on nicotine over people who are stoned. Nicotine makes you more alert, more productive. Weed does not have that effect, okay?
I'm sorry, what year is this? Man, you really don't need like a time machine. If you just want to go a couple decades in the past, you don't need a time machine. You just need to turn on a Matt Walsh segment about how like tobacco is actually good for you, and the tobacco industry is actually a very good and moral industry. But of course, the devil's lettuce is bad because.
Like back when everyone smoked cigarettes everywhere, you go back to like the 40s, everyone smoking cigarettes. Everywhere you
Yeah, dude, everybody was doing it. So I guess that means it's right. What? Okay. Yeah, if you don't really need a time, like, we don't even really need to invent a time machine or time travel. All you have to do is literally just pay attention to some like conservative pundits, and you'll go back in time. We'll kick it back to the 40s if we have to, and then like the whole big the culmination of like the anti-tobacco lawsuits and whatnot. But we're not going to talk about that, right?
go, just everything smells like cigarettes.
Yeah, like we're not going to talk about how like the tobacco industry lied for decades about the effects of its products and yada yada yada. We're not going to talk about that, right? No.
And back then, we were a highly productive country. We have never been more productive. This back when we were building skyscrapers and winning world wars and going to the moon and stuff.
Yeah, true, dude. Cigarettes inspired all of that. Very true. Also, as he pointed out, hey, here's a question. Why aren't you smoking right now? Do you smoke, Matt Walsh? The answer's no, of course not. Yeah, cigarettes are why we won WW2. Exactly. Worker productivity is higher now. Yes, that's true. That's true. The 1840s was slavery. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying all that happened because of cigarettes. I'm just saying that societally, the effects of cigarettes.
Yeah, true, dude. So, like, can we say the same thing? Like, literally, like, oh, well, in the 40s or whatever, this product was around everywhere. So I guess we should. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. It's completely illogical. So because cigarettes were a big part of society back then, therefore, like, that's what caused us to go to the moon and win world wars? Question mark. I'd be smoking, but I'd be smoking the weed. Yeah, but he can't really say that, right? I think slave labor actually built America. He can't really say that. He said the tobacco industry, which, incidentally, yeah.
Are actually pretty positive, and same is not true of weed. Okay, you like, does anyone really want to deny that? You take a city
Yeah, anyone with like objective truth to kind of look at what's going on. Yeah.
Have everyone smoked cigarettes. They're all dosing themselves with nicotine. Have another city, everyone's stoned. Which city do you think, which one would you rather live in? Like, which one do you think is going to be more productive?
Anyways, hey, Matt, why aren't you like chain smoking cigarettes right now? I wonder if anyone in these, yeah, I think people are catching on. Yeah, Stoner City all day. I mean, yeah. Absolute clown. This is a kind of intellectual the intellectual titan. This is the kind of logic that we're being introduced to. Wash does not know pot stores. Oh, he does. He just I don't know. Religious fundamentalism, whatever. Religious fundamentalism tied in with like white supremacy. Texas Governor Abbott endorses Trump at campaign stop on southern border. Donald Trump returned to the U.S.-Mexico border for a visit on Sunday and was endorsed by Republican Governor of Texas as the former president campaigns on hardline immigration agenda that would be far more expansive than the policies he pursued. We need a president who's going to secure the border. Abbott, a longtime ally and fellow border hawk, told a crowd of about 150 at an airport hangar, "We need Donald J. Trump back as our president of the United States of America." Trump, the party's frontrunner of the 2024 nomination, took the stage afterwards and thanked Abbott, saying that in defeating the Democratic president, "I'm going to make your job much easier. You'll be able to focus on things. You'll be able to focus on things in Texas," Trump said, speaking in a town that is about 30 miles from the Hidalgo port of entry, crossing with Mexico. Earlier, he served meals to Texas National Guard soldiers, troopers, and others who will be stationed at the border. Over Thanksgiving, Trump and Abbott handed out tacos, and the former president shook hands and posed for pictures. "What you do is incredible. I want it done it right." Trump, sorry, hold on. "What you do is incredible, and you want it to be done right." Abbott said about the guard members and Texas troopers who are stationed at the border, "They should not be here at this time. They should be at home. The only reason they are here is because we have a president of the United States who is not securing our borders," as opposed to Biden, right? "On my first day back in the White House, I will terminate every open border policy of the Biden administration that doesn't exist. I will stop the invasion on our southern border and begin the largest domestic deportation operation in American history. But don't let the xenophobia fool you, as Biden has currently deported more people than Trump at this stage." He also wants to revive and expand the controversial Muslim travel ban, which initially targeted 7 Muslim-majority countries. Trump's initial executive order was fought all the way to the Supreme Court, which upheld what Trump complained as was a watered-down version that included travels from North Korea and some Venezuelan officials. Begin new ideological screening for immigrants. Red flag. This is a massive red flag. Aiming to bar Christian-hating communists and Marxists and dangerous lunatics, haters and bigots and maniacs. Wow. From entering the United States, those who come and join our country must love our country. Bar those who support Hamas, because if you empathize with radical Islamic terrorism and extremists, you're already disqualified. If you want to abolish the state of Israel, you're disqualified. If you support Hamas or any ideology that has to do with that, or other really sick thoughts that are going through people's mind, very dangerous thoughts, you're disqualified. Like, How do you know that? How do you determine that? Like, check here if you're a communist. Check here if you're Hamas. Okay. Yeah, it's the Peter Griffin meme. Sometimes it's so jarring when you switch to Trump's voice. Sorry. Yeah, this one. Deport immigrants living in the country who harbor jihadist sympathies and send immigration agents to pro-jihadist demonstrations to identify violators. So, yeah, if you, I guess, if you're Muslim, and yeah, I guess that's what they mean. You would target foreign nationals on college campuses and revoke the student visas of those who express anti-American or anti-Semitic views. What is anti-American? Isn't like the most American thing? Supposedly, isn't the most American thing like the ability to be like, hey, you know what? Screw the president. Screw like this country's like the direction this country is going. Heck, you can even say screw this country. Isn't that like the most American thing you can do is to be like, yeah, I you know, I want to criticize this country. And you know what? I can. Invoke the Alien Enemies Act to remove from the United States all known or suspected gang members and drug dealers, even if they're American? Question mark. That law was used to justify internment camps during World War II. Allows the president to unilaterally detain and deport people who are not U.S. citizens. Jesus. End the constitutional right to birthright citizenship by signing an executive order on his first day in office that would codify. Like, you see, like these are actions that he could take. And my point being is that like Biden doesn't have an excuse. Okay, I'm not saying Biden can snap his fingers and like do everything, but he does have a certain, you know, there are certain powers within his purview that he could be using right now. And he's not. Meanwhile, Trump's threatening to like use all of these, you know, tools that are at his disposal, or at least attempt to. You know, it might or may not get fought in courts, but under his order, only children with at least one U.S. citizens or lawful permanent resident would be eligible for passport, social security number, and other benefits. Terminate all work permits and cut off funding for shelter and transportation for people who are in the country illegally. Build more of the wall along the border. Crack down on legal asylum seekers and re-implement measures such as Title 42, which allowed Trump to turn away immigrants at the U.S.-Mexico border on grounds of preventing the spread of COVID. Wait, but I thought that this I thought that this wasn't a big deal. This pandemic is over. If Biden used his main stage to speak about progressive policy and how they would help people, that would be enough for me. He doesn't even openly speak about. No, he's not a leftist. He's not a leftist. He's not a leftist. I don't think about him as a progressive. Yeah, he's definitely not. He's definitely not. I'm just saying he could at least try to do anything left leaning. Yeah, no, well, I agree with that. Yeah. I agree with that. Press Congress to pass a law so anyone caught trafficking women or children would receive the death penalty. Biden's always been around the right end of the Democratic Party. Yep. Well, why would he? Well, I mean, there's an election about a year from now. I don't know. Shift law enforcement, federal law enforcement from agents from FBI to drug enforcement to immigration enforcement and reposition the southern border. Thousands of troops currently stationed. Before we defend our borders to foreign countries, we must secure the border of our country. Jesus. Trump has made frequent trips to the border as a candidate and as president. During his 2016 campaign, he traveled to Laredo, Texas in July for a visit 2015 that highlighted how his views on immigration helped him win the media attention and support from the GOP base. The border has also become a centerpiece of Abbott's agenda and the subject of an escalating fight with the Biden administration over immigration. The three-term governor has approved billions of dollars in new border wall construction, authorized razor wire on the banks of Rio Grande, and bused thousands of immigrants to Democrat-led cities across the U.S. So, yeah. You all have been talking about how he's losing his leftist base, and I'm just saying if he uses stage to even speak about it's about the benefits on it, it could help. I mean, yeah, it could. It could. He should. But more importantly, he should also advocate and put action behind it, right? Whether or not he's going to do that is a different story, right? Anyways, I think we got the point of this article. Abbott is endorsing Trump, so yeah. Biden will do what he's told. I'm just saying it feels like he isn't even trying in the slightest. He won't even speak on leftist ideals. Yeah, and that's a problem. Yeah, and I agree with you. That's a problem. He won't. And he's not going to because, well, he's not a leftist. He's not a progressive, so he's not going to. He should, and he should push for progressive policies, but he doesn't. But he doesn't. All right.
Now that we know that it's not, in fact,
Yeah. Whoa. Jesus. Who's that guy? Someone who I wish would just disappear from politics altogether. Maybe. Oh man, this needs to be an emote. Maybe when Twitter finally goes bankrupt, maybe we won't have to hear about this guy. Who knows? For all intents and purposes, he pretty much has disappeared. certainly fallen off, that's for sure. He's more left-wing than Biden? No. A fascist? A white nationalist? Come on, man. That's a really weird thing to say. That's a really weird thing to say.
Now that we know that it was not, in fact, a pandemic of the unvaccinated, now that we know that Ukraine is not actually winning the war against Russia, it could be time to revisit some of the other slogans we've been assured are true.
Twitter video pretends to be relevant by counting every scroll as a view. True.
And ordered to repeat. Are they in fact true? Did, for example, a racist white cop actually murder a man called George Floyd, a civil rights leader, in Minneapolis?
What? What? That is a wild distortion of the facts. Like, what? To my knowledge, was George Floyd even like a civil rights leader? What are you talking about? Cope with what? With reality? What are you talking about?
Minneapolis on Memorial Day of 2020. Now, we've been told that happened, told it relentlessly for more than 3 years. So at this point, we've been told it so much that pretty much...
Bro, he was convicted. He was convicted of his murder. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because, like, we're here, like, years later, and the Supreme Court, the right-wing Supreme Court, denied this dude's appeal. Okay? That's the reason why we're prefacing this with this clown on the screen right now. Yes to what?
Everybody seems to believe it. And because everyone does kind of believe it, a small group of people has been allowed to make massive changes to American society.
What massive changes are you talking about? What are you on about? Like, first of all, the distortion of reality of what happened. The cop murdered George Floyd. Period. He was convicted of it. And then to say, like, oh, we've been told that's what happened, but is that what happened? Yeah, that's what happened, dude. That's he was convicted of this, and his buddies were also convicted of violating his rights and not applying procedure. Yeah, there's a literal video of it. He was probably an informant. Who? What are you talking about? Who? Tucker?
They include, but are not limited to.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I'm not dealing with that. Listen, hey, in this chat, we're not going to debate flat Earth, okay? So if you want to like debate alternate reality, it's not here. This chat's not for you. I'm not going to sit here and debate flat Earth. I'm not going to sit here and debate things that we literally saw with our own eyes. Yeah, no. No. Nope. Yeah, I was confused too, so I kept asking, like, what the heck they were on about.
Decriminalizing stealing, defunding the police, adding a new federal holiday.
Defunding the police has literally, like, it's not a thing. It's not a thing.
To the calendar called Juneteenth.
That wasn't as a result of George Floyd. What are you talking about? Juneteenth has been a holiday, has been recognized for when was Juneteenth started? Literally, like, in 1865. That was the origins of Juneteenth. Yeah, scary holidays, terrifying opportunity to have a cookout. True. Very scary.
ceasing of hiring all white men in corporate America. And
Oh, guys, hey, listen, folks. Listen, you know what? The downfall of America has finally come, okay? There are literally no more white men in corporate America. It's done, folks. It's over. There's literally not a single there's not a single white man being hired for corporate at the corporate echelons of power anymore. It's not happening. It's just not. It's over. It's over, folks. This is all about him losing his show, isn't it?
of course, significantly, they also sent a cop called Derek Chauvin to prison for more than 40 years.
Yeah, for murder. For murder, dude.
He would be the racist white devil who murdered George Floyd. But the question is, did he actually murder George Floyd? And the answer is, well, no, he didn't.
He did. That's why he was convicted of it. He did. No matter what anybody tells you, yeah, he did. He did murder him.
Murder George Floyd. And we're not guessing about that. We know it conclusively
Oh,
thanks to a new court case now underway in Hennepin
Oh,
County,
shit. Really?
Minnesota. The case was brought by a prosecutor there called Amy Sweezy. She's suing her boss. So the case is not actually about George Floyd or...
What? We know definitively that George Floyd wasn't murdered because we found a case that's happening in Minneapolis. But the case is not about George Floyd. What?
or Derek Chauvin, but it tells you an awful lot about both of them. In her deposition, which you should read, Amy Sweezy describes a conversation that she had with the county medical examiner, Andrew Baker, right after George Floyd died. Quote, I called Dr. Baker early that morning to tell him about the case and to ask him if he would perform the autopsy.
Sam Altman is white. Coincidence? Also, that wasn't the only... By the way, that wasn't the only autopsy that was performed, right? This was also corroborated by the family. The family got a third-party autopsy, by the way.
Autopsy on Mr. Floyd. Sweezy recalls all this under oath in the deposition. Quote,
Let me guess, the fentanyl, right? They're going to go with the fentanyl.
In the day on that Tuesday. And he told me that there were no medical findings that showed any injury to the vital structures of Mr. Floyd's neck. There were no medical indications of asphyxia or strangulation. Oh. In other words, George Floyd, according to the official autopsy, was not murdered. He died instead of what we used to call natural causes, which in his case...
That sounds like bullshit. Yeah, I mean, given by what he just said, it is entirely possible that he just made it up.
Would include decades of drug use, as well as the fatal concentration of fentanyl that was in his system on his final day. So this was not a killing. It was yet another narcotics OD in a country that records more than 100,000 of them every year. The medical examiner clearly understood that and, in fact, articulated it. And Sweezy.
Hey, so why wasn't this present at the trial? And why did the other autopsy performed didn't bring that up either? That sounds strange.
Explains. He said to me, she recalls in the deposition, Amy, what happens when the actual evidence doesn't match up with the public narrative?
It's not just a public narrative, dude.
That everyone's already...
A lot of narcotic ODs are asphyxia.
...decided on. And then he said, quote, this is the kind of case that ends careers. In other words, everyone lied about it from the very beginning. The people who knew the truth hid the truth and allowed the revolution to proceed. Now they've been exposed. Now we know the truth. What happens next? Well, they're going to ignore it. The Biden administration just issued a long purple statement celebrating George Floyd's birthday. He's a martyr. Despite the fact we know that he was not murdered. And by the way, Derek Chauvin is still languishing in jail for the rest of his life.
Good.
So how do we respond to this? How do we respond to the truth once we have it? Well, Vince Everett Ellison seemed like a good man to ask. He's the author of Crime, Inc. He joins us now. Vince, thanks so much for coming on. So as with so many other stories, the origin
thanks for having me, Tucker.
Of COVID, it's a blessing to have you. We now know what actually happened, but the question then is, what do you do with that knowledge? We know that the U.S. government Tony Fauci worked with the Chinese to create the virus.
Whoa. That's not a thing that happened. Also, what does this have to do with George Floyd? I'm sorry, what?
That overturned the American economy. But, like, what do we do with that knowledge? What do we do with the knowledge that George Floyd was not actually strangled to death by a cop?
We have to acknowledge the people that gave it to us and why. See, George Floyd is the Democratic Party's prototypical black man. These are the black men they are trying to create. So George Floyd has to be elevated. He has to be celebrated.
What are you talking about? The dude was killed by a cop.
He's perfect to them. He was poor, he was uneducated, he was a drug addict, he didn't have a job, he was down there begging and crying and asking the white people to not kill him. To a Democrat, to a white Democrat, this is the perfect black man. So he has to be elevated. Look, not a few days ago, Kamala Harris and Joe Biden
Cardiopulmonary arrest, the official cause of death.
Celebrated hip-hop music. They had a celebration of hip-hop.
Hip-hop culture is America's culture. It is a genre. It is music and melody and rhyme. And hip-hop is also an ethos.
A music genre that calls the black man the N-word, calls women the W word and the B word, talks about misogyny, shooting police, smoking dope, selling dope, fighting, killing, acting a fool. They celebrated this genre. Why? Because this is how they see black America. They see us the same way they see George Floyd. And they have to make more of us because everywhere they rule, you know, John F. Kennedy stood in front of the Berlin Wall in the 60s and said, if you think that communism is great, let them come to Berlin.
Yeah, it's a broad genre.
Well, if you think that the Democratic Party...
And also, like, they talk about, like, oh, well, it's the hip-hop, you know, genre. Meanwhile, like, there's other types of music that talk about drugs and whatnot. They don't mention that.
Party is great. Let them come to Detroit. Let them come to Chicago. Let them come to St. Louis. Let them come to LA, Portland, Seattle, Memphis. Anywhere where they rule, you'll see George Floyd's all over the place. And they're proud of them. In Baltimore, Maryland, they spend $21,000 per child for every child up there inside the school district. Not one school is proficient in math, science, or reading. But they keep it going every year. Why? Because they're producing George Floyd.
But
and George Floyd's vote for the Democrat Party.
But why would, so when most of us, you, me, I think all normal people look at George Floyd's life, you think this is a disaster. This guy never added anything. He took a lot in prison at least 8 times. I mean, his life was a tragedy at best. Why would you want more people like that?
Because he votes for the Democrat Party. And then he teaches his children to vote for the Democrat Party.
Okay, well, this is just ludicrous, and I think we got the point of what we needed to get, which was at the beginning. Yeah, so this is just nonsense. This is nonsense. So the point being is that even years later, they're still talking about, like, you know, the drug overdose and whatnot. He didn't kill George Floyd. Well, the Supreme Court declines the appeal from Derek Chauvin to review conviction in the George Floyd murder. The Supreme Court on Monday turned away an appeal from Derek Chauvin, the former Minneapolis police officer convicted of killing George Floyd, who argued that riots in the city biased the jury against him. Chauvin was sentenced to more than 20 years in prison for second-degree, third-degree murder in 2020, killing of Floyd, which sparked protests and unrest across the nation over police brutality and systemic racism. He appealed to the Supreme Court with an argument that the jurors were compelled to side against him to avoid further unrest. Not that, like, oh, I didn't do it, and, like, that conviction wasn't right. No, it's actually just like, you know, the narrative was turned against me. Mr. Chauvin's case shows the profound difficulties trial courts have to ensure a criminal defendant's rights to an impartial jury. Consistently when extreme cases arise, his attorney told the court. This is particularly true here when the jurors themselves had a vested interest in finding Mr. Chauvin guilty in order to avoid further rioting, not whether or not he did it. in the community which they lived and the possible threat of physical harm to them or their families. The Supreme Court declined to hear the appeal without an explanation. Yeah. I wonder why. Chauvin, whose wife pinned Floyd's neck and ignored his protest that he couldn't breathe, the scene captured widely by witness videos. Floyd was black. Yeah, so, like, again, I don't even know if this was, like, if this dude was even, like, doing this because he was black or racist or whatever. That was not the claim. The claim was that this dude killed George Floyd because he showed absolutely no remorse for life, and he stood on his neck. He kneed on his neck, and he died. The Supreme Court rejected this appeal. Okay? It doesn't get any more clear-cut than that. It doesn't get any more clear-cut than that. And people on the far right, like Tucker, are still perpetuating this, are still saying it didn't happen. Don't believe your eyes. Don't believe the video evidence. Don't believe the conviction. Don't believe the rejected appeals. It didn't happen. I mean, like, how unironically, like, dystopian is that they're literally, like, people like Tucker, and he's not the only one. He just happens to be one of the louder voices, and the one that came across my feed first. But these people have been saying the same thing for years. There are still Holocaust deniers, so it isn't really that surprising. Well, that's true. That's true. And usually, the Venn diagram is a circle between the people that believe what Tucker is saying and the people that deny the Holocaust, right? That Venn diagram is pretty much a circle. Tucker changing his style by society changing? No, he hasn't changed his style at all. Denying the Holocaust is old news. The cool kids deny the 7th October massacre. What are you talking about? I read that in Tucker's questioning voice. Oh, man. Yeah, it's a big red flag. Are you okay, dude? Okay, so what does that have to do with me making the point that the same people who will literally look at evidence and deny it are like, with regards to like the George Floyd case, are like these far right people, like Tucker Carlson? I don't understand what the point is. It's getting Monday Circus of Trolls, not great quality. They're not bringing their best, folks. Anyways, we made it, folks. We got it through. Again, folks, join the Discord. We're gonna try. and see if we can make the movie day happen on Saturday evening. I'll probably try to get more details on that soon. But yeah, if you want to just hang out in the Discord, you can. I have revamped the Discord server, so it's better organized, and yeah, feel free to hang out there. Also, folks, any movie suggestions are also welcome. True. They also have to be movies that I have, or maybe like movies that are available on, like, I don't know, Prime, or maybe Prime, or maybe Netflix while I still have that, because I'm gonna cancel my subscriptions because it's getting out of hand. Anyways, so yeah, any movies that you guys want to watch, I can put it on the list, because, you know, hey, what if we just pick out one movie, and then maybe the next time we'll watch another one from the list of suggestions. Maybe I can make a specific channel just for like movie, or maybe I can make a poll on Discord. I don't know how to make a poll. Anyways, I'm rambling. The point being is, join the Discord. We'll try to make it happen. I don't think Prime can be shared on Discord. I think it can. You just have to, you know, screen share or something. I think, well, maybe, I don't know. Oh, yeah, we'll figure it out. I don't know. YouTube does have free movies. Free movies with ads. Oh, boy. But yeah, we'll figure it out. That's the point. I know how to do it. Yeah, there was like a setting that you're supposed to do on your browser, on your web. I don't know. I'll have to test it. I'll have to test it on my own before. All right, folks. I got to get out of here. If you enjoy the content, don't forget to hit the follow button. If you want to support the channel, and you cannot do so monetarily, and you want to go even further beyond, go to the YouTube channel. I posted the link again. Subscribe. Spread the word. Sharpie Diesel. Subscribe, share the word, join the Discord, all that awesome stuff. You can also find movies on YouTube that are free, but with ads. Once again, I'll put the Discord here. Join the Discord. Thank you, Heat. Thank you, Michael Hassler, for keeping the chat chill. We'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern time. As always, folks, please stay safe. Please take care of each other. I love you all, and I hope to see you guys in the next one tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern time. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I also have premium. See? All right, well, you know, we'll have solutions. I appreciate it. See ya. Oh, with no ads. Cool. Gotcha. We'll have to look into it. All right, folks, hang tight, hang tight, hang tight, hang tight. We're heading out in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. See ya. Bye-bye.